Sahana Vavatu Sahanau Bhunaktu Saha Viryankaravavahai Tejasvinavadhitamastu ma vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Chaiva Tato Jayamudiraye. That's it. Yeah, so please share your takeaways from today.
Of preferential love, universal love.
Mm,
Expand here.
that was beautiful.
Yeah.
Your
Yeah,
attachment.
Arjavam is the second, like he mentioned about Arjavam so much.
Mm,
It's it gives you have to be so much. Is it not just straightforwardness, and also you have to make so much attention and steadfast to that.
mm.
Yeah.
Practice, no, Arjavam is a practice. It is, it does not come naturally. It is a,
Abhyasa is
yeah.
yeah. Okay, you are talking about the meaning, right? Like I was thinking about Arjam in context of what we supposed to do. I mean, is even just one word, it has so much meaning in the life, right? Like, go ahead, finish what you're saying.
Yeah, very true. Like what Krishna did, he walked the talk. It is not like he just mentioned all this and he was doing something different. He was
Yeah.
followed
Mm-hmm.
through whatever he said.
Yeah, like he stick to what he did, right? This Arjavam is like, uh, I mean, I had to listen to Nana's today's talk with so many things.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's better to take notes. It's I stopped taking notes now.
I know I didn't have my book ready with me. Otherwise, I would have even what King Janaka says to Rama when he's giving Sita away in marriage. Iyam,
yeah,
Iyam Sita.
you're following us like a shadow that
Miva
you will, she will follow him. She'll follow him,
Saraswati.
throughout her life, and holding hand. I know that was a nice song that he mentioned.
It is what?
And
Iyam. Yeah, does anyone remember the whole thing? Iyam Sita Tava. Tava. I don't know what he said. Tava. Chayamiva Anucharati. So,
mm,
and Pani Grahanam Kurushva. So he says,
right.
take her, but this Sita is going to be like your shadow. So,
Mm,
and she follow you wherever you go.
right.
I
That's
mean,
nice.
just that situation when Rama had to see, we read it as a story, but actually, if you get into the shoes of Rama and Sita at that point,
Mm-hmm.
with our current mindset, it's so difficult to accept it without any murmur, without any grumble. That is the swakarmana tamabhyar. So that was the example given for the swakarma. For Rama, it was pitruvakya paripalan. That was his swakarma, and his so he just followed
Yeah.
it to the T. And Sita followed him to the T.
It is. I mean, it's really, really, they're like perfect, right? Like everything they do is perfect.
See,
That's
because
an
at that
they give you, so you to be like that. There is another thing I do like to mention. I know we talk about Rama and Sita a lot. In the same token, where Lakshmana follows the brother, I mean, that in the context, like where that's Lakshmana's wife, Urmila, she understands her husband, and she's doesn't, even though she wants to be with him, I think he needs to be with Rama so much closer that he wouldn't be enjoying if he stayed back, or if she goes with him, he wouldn't be able to give that attention. So she stays back. And throughout that 14 years, and hoping that they are doing okay, That's really amazing as well. I mean, everybody in.
Hello,
Yes.
but that doesn't this for Lakshman's wife. Even she has to follow, no, as a shadow, whatever it is, whether he gives this one or not, she has to follow him. I did not understand that. Rama did whatever it is. Gita, okay, they are hero, heroine, they did it. But even Lakshmana goes with him, then Lakshmana's wife should have gone with him also.
See, I think there, no, Sureshji, there are those several intricacies. They bring in this this concept of what is that? They have a vow, or they have some um, some, how do I put it? Some precondition is there. Why Urmila did not follow Lakshmana was because she had this wish that she could sleep instead of her husband. And Lakshmana, if I think we remember, he did not sleep throughout. So instead of him, she took on the sleep. So she slept instead of him. So in such a way, she was actually doing for him, for her husband. No? So there is a reason why this happens. Why? So that, I think, unless we read it properly, we will not. Just like that, on the surface, it might seem, oh, she's not doing a sahaja dharmacharini. But in her own way, Urmila is also great. So there would be some
She
minor.
suffers a lot actually, but she, in the meaning like that separation, right? And that's really a lot. I mean, think about it. Like if you have your husband going away, you would be thinking about constantly what's going to happen to this person. I think it's part of it is they are going to a forest. They are not going to like live in somewhere. It should be a nuisance if he is going to be looking after this Rama and Sita. So that is maybe another reason Lakshman told Urmila it's better for her to stay there. And then she also understood this is the reason and stayed back. But I don't know. I have to read up again, and
I
but
think we need to read. We cannot just discuss that without sound knowledge.
without no.
Without-
I'm just saying like it was really something that I felt she
Urmila
went
also the same thing, no?
No, I think one more thing which Nanaji said today, probably very, very profound, was on what points we analyze and discuss also is something we need to ponder upon, right? Ultimately, he said it's Atmagyana which matters for each one of us. So there might be certain topics like we discuss a lot on, say, Varnas or Ashramas and all. He said those all probably, yeah, good to know, no doubt about it, but maybe not required to be analyzed too much. Same may be the case with Rama, Sita, Lakshmana, Urmila and all. yes, some values are there which if we can imbibe, we imbibe, and we don't probably understand why it happened or why didn't happen the way we think it should have happened. That I think is again very profound as to on what we focus attention. So if we are very focused on Atmagyana, maybe that's
Here, correct. Thank you for re-steering the focus of Manana. Manana here is not to, is all about chiseling our knowledge. No? So it is not so much about, ultimately, all this is in the transactional world.
correct.
So we need to use this as a step up to pole vault and go over the other side. So if we are stuck in this side only, there is no way we'll jump.
The pole has to be dropped and then only you can.
Exactly. So I think we will steer clear of some distracting discussions under Manana, so that we are clear about where we are going.
Yeah.
Thank you for bringing in that compass.
Yeah, no, I thought that was very, very important
That was
point.
important also. I realized it when Nana was answering the question I had
Yeah,
asked.
yeah. Even I felt that he was kind of, though he says it so politely, beautifully, compassionately, but deep
Correct.
inside, maybe he was thinking, why are these people asking this question after having gone through Atma Bodha and Bhagavad Gita, Bhaja Govindam, and all that? Why are they asking these questions? Maybe is the thought he probably had is what I felt when he was saying that.
Mm.
So yeah, we might have to keep that in mind. That's all. It's easy to get carried into those kind of conversations.
Mm.
But yeah, at some point we would say, oh, that doesn't matter to
Yeah.
me. I have to realize myself. That's it.
We don't have to be dwelling upon the same thing, like which is not necessary. You know, we have to.
And one more thing, which maybe I don't know whether it's relevant or not, but many times we are thinking of situations, discussing it all about the other, right? We are always thinking why someone else is not doing something, why someone else is not getting the knowledge or whatever. Ultimately, all that doesn't matter, is what I feel. Doesn't matter, right? Ultimately, it's what is it that's relevant to me?
Correct.
How is it going to help me? Not what they did, whether they get enlightened, they don't get enlightened, whether they get knowledge. Not very relevant, really. It's ultimately our own journey, right? It's all just, that's the only focus, maybe to whatever extent we can. Oh yes, we are in the world, so we have to deal with everything that's around. But when it comes to the knowledge, use it for our own sake. That's it. We can't give this to anyone. Gurudev says no.
Vyavasayartika buddhi. My
Yeah,
question was a little deviant. I completely agree. It was, yeah, that is true.
yeah, it was very, and then the beautiful thing which I took away today, the other thing was about love and attachment, right? It's again something very, very powerful. We don't probably, we feel that attachment is love. It's not. It's not, the way Nanaji brought it out. Attachment, okay, he said that you then have universal attachment or universal love. If that is a little difficult, I don't know, maybe over time it might come, universal love. We have to just understand what is attachment, difference between attachment and love. That will also help us to come out of attachment. So one of the definitions which appealed to me and I try to follow to whatever extent possible is, attachment is always, if you look at attachment, there is deep inside, there is an expectation. So actually, if you have whether it's spouse or child or anyone, there is an attachment. When we say attachment, we think it is love. It is love plus expectation. Drop the expectation, then it's only love. So there is an expectation always.
It's also dependency, that you depend on that person mentally rather than, I mean, may not be physically, but then you.
Yeah, expectation can be mental also. I'm not saying it has to be physical. Expectation means there is, you, like Nanaji mentioned, spouse gives me happiness, right? Now, anything that gives happiness will also give sorrow at some point in time. Maybe when that person is no more or whatever, it will result in sorrow. So love without expectation is what is real happiness. You are happy for no reason, isn't it? That's where this journey slowly should go, take us.
You are happy if you go to the self.
Yeah, that is the unconditional, and there is no one can take it away from you, right? There is no that happiness nobody can take away.
We have
Otherwise,
to concentrate.
What
yeah,
I
continue.
wanted to also mention was when the situation with Rama and Sita, and when they had to go, Sita and Rama did not question why. They just followed the Pitruvakya Paripalana. They did the Pitruvakya Paripalana. At that point, they exemplify that for them, the dharma was uppermost and they came second. But in the current day, in Kali Yuga, what with all of us, what happens is we put the I first and the dharma comes next. And therefore we question. All the questionings that we do, why should I go? Only 2 hours ago, you said, get ready for the coronation. If the same thing had happened in Kali Yuga, we would question why. Because we put the I first. We come from the self-centered nature. Whereas what Rama and Sita exemplify is that dharma was uppermost. So following that dharma, or following that swakarma, swadharma was uppermost for them. So that was something I wanted to share. All these.
Hariom, I just sorry for taking it out of track, but Swadharma, as I followed right, Bhagwan is saying that if you are a farmer, you continue doing farming. If you are a cobbler, you continue doing cobbler. Is it that he's trying to protect those heritage? Like whatever you are doing, you be 100% with that. But I had little confusion at the same time that suppose if I wish I want to do farming, I'm not efficient, but I want to try. So am I deviating my swadharma? We can discuss it later also. This is just a point. We can continue with your...
Belaji, that again depends on why you want to undertake farming. Why do you want to undertake farming would probably dictate that. Maybe you took up some other profession for all your life for whatever reason, and now you're getting to your swadharma. Farming could be your swadharma. You don't never know. Maybe you were caught up with other things and you didn't engage in that. And now if you're engaging in it, it's fine. Depends on the intention, right? Like Nanaji's example, the person sitting at the back seat, looking at the driver, feeling, oh, he's so happy, he's got so much of space, he's driving, whatever that he felt. And because of that, now he wants to go there, means then it is maybe not good, right? You think that is what is a better situation to be in, and that person is more happier doing that, so I want to do that. That's not then swadharma, right?
If you do that agriculture to help humanity or to create or to, that has to come from your own, whether it yields or not yields, you want to take up. That is a good thing. Like a yajna.
Yeah, it's actually the intention in the inner voice, right? If you really go deep inside, you can hear your inner voice prompting you to do things, and then yeah, this is something. Yeah, this is what appeals to me. This is with this I can bring about some transformation in the way agriculture is done. In this way I can bring more like something about farming which many maybe not be adopting. So it depends on the intention, I think. That's what I could understand when Nanaji spoke about that driving thing.
Yeah, okay, Dhanyavad. It's clear, yeah, with intention with which you try to deviate. I mean, that may be the birth from birth, but it was shadow,
Correct.
overshadowed by other things. Yeah.
True, very true.
Dhanyavad. But I
Actually-
love the word Bhagwan is insisting here that everyone should continue their Swadharma. It will protect the humanity. It will not only protect the humanity, but even the environment.
Absolutely.
That is
In
where
this
the
context, yeah.
Dharma Veda came, He was a butcher. He was like cutting meat, but he was a jnani himself. So he did not give up his vritti. In yesterday's story that Nana had shared about Kaushika, uh, he goes to this butcher who the housewife directs him to, and he is happily doing his work. So, although it is devoid of merit, Shreyan Swadharmo Vigunaha Paradharmat Swanushtitat Swabhava Niyatam Karma Kurvannapnoti Kilbisham. So, Vigunaha, devoid of merit, Swadharmaha, one's own duty, Swanushtitat, well done, Paradharmat, duty of another person, Shreyan is better, Swabhava Niyatam Karma, action enjoined according to one's nature, Kurvan, doing, Na apnoti, one does not gain, Kilvisham, fault. So one's own duty devoid of merit is better than the duty of another, well done. Doing action enjoined according to one's nature, one does not fault. Yeah. It will be, I think, everybody's inner call, the Swadharma. Sometimes it comes naturally, but sometimes, yeah, you may be doing something different. But ultimately, when you, like how Vijayji very beautifully explained, it will uncover itself in due course. I've known so many people who are working as chartered accountants, but they are actually into Vedas or Vedanta and Pravachanam. So some of them have actually given up. I think one person is that not Dhananjaya. What's his name? We listened to his Bhagavatam. He was actually a practicing chartered accountant, but he gave it up completely and he's doing only Bhagavata Pravachanam. So that, I think, is an inner call. And when that call comes, maybe all the sadhana and all that also help in uncovering that innate Swadharma. Otherwise, we'll be held up only in the mind. We will not come to our natural self. No?
Yeah, and also what you're doing today, if it feels like a burden, if it feels like, oh my God, I have to go to work, I have to do this, then there is something that you might need to go deep in and think, okay, what is it that I would like to do, right? So then there you immediately you can figure out, oh, this probably is not. Many people may not get that thought also because they are caught up in that thing, so there's no time to really reflect upon it. But uh, as Brahmaraji said, maybe with your sadhana at some point you might get that ability to start analyzing, oh, is this really helping me? Am I feeling burdened doing what I'm doing? Like every Monday morning, do I feel, oh my God, again, one more week I have to? Then you know I'm in the wrong place. Then if you have the courage to change course, good. If not, yeah, then we continue like that. So that call has to be taken. they say, spirituality or following this path is not for weak people. You should have a lot of courage. Where you feel, yes, this is not what I want to do. This is not what my inner calling is. Having the courage to take the decision. It's not easy, right? Maybe a lucrative job or a profession, leaving it and then saying, I want to get into something else is not easy to do. What are the risks involved? Will I be successful? All those doubts will come. Despite that, if you're able to take that call, yes, then you're following Krishna's, Bhagwan's footsteps or what he's saying. Finally, it all works out. That's the beauty. Finally, it works out, but we don't have that. We say we all believe in God, but when it's times like these where that belief has to be shown, exhibited, right? It's beautiful experience to go through.
Ultimately, depends upon the individual. He has to find his own Swadharma. That I felt. Because since childhood, I was loving to, though we were weavers, but I was loving to do the taking jnana and telling to others also. I was teaching anybody who comes to me, oh, like this, like this, like this. And ultimately, I am ending to, now I become even a old teacher also. So I was loving it. But for as an engineer, I did okay to help family to grow and all that. But ultimately, we came back to again the teaching and Atma Jnana and everything, That was a Swadharma, almost, I felt.
सहजं कर्म कौन्तेय सदोषमपि न त्यजेत् सर्वारम्भा हि दोषेण धूमेनाग्निरिवावृताः. Sahajam karma, the karma that is natural according to your birth. Kaunteya, O son of Kunti, Arjuna. Dosham api, sadosham api, even though defective, na tyajed, one should not give up. Sarvarambhahi, because all undertakings, avritaha, are covered, doshena, with fault, agnihi iva, like fire, dhumena, with smoke. The karma that is natural according to your birth, O Arjuna, though defective, one should not give up, because all undertakings are covered with fault, like fire is covered with smoke. So this fault over here is that the papa punya that you acquire by doing any karma. That is why any karma is fault, is laden with fault. So even though defective, one should not give up, because you cannot stay without doing any action. Action is inevitable. So when action is inevitable, then the next one is you chisel it out, fine tune it and do your swakarma, which is according to your swadharma. Even though it is rid with devoid of merit, you continue to do your swakarma.
I think that is what the artists do, no? Many times. They will not get, they toil like anything until they get famous or anything. But they continue doing their, like singing, painting, acting, though they are not successful in there, they will be continuing doing it.
asakta buddhi sarvatra jitatma vigata spruhaha naishkarmya siddhim paramam sanyasenadhigacchati. Sarvatra, everywhere. Asakta buddhihi, the one whose mind is free from attachment. Jitatma, the one who has self-mastery. Vigata spruhaha, the one from whom longing has gone. Sanyasena, by renunciation. Naishkarmya siddhim paramam, the most exalted accomplishment of actionlessness. Adhigacchati, gains. The one whose mind is free from attachment everywhere, who has self-mastery, and from whom longing has gone, gains the most exalted accomplishment of actionlessness by renunciation. This is where, for that asakta buddhi, Nana said, expand your attachment rather than limit it to just your family and closed inner circle. Expand it to involve the whole universe. That becomes universal love. Just like how Gurudev says, when you worry, expand your worry. You worry about what will happen to the universe, what will happen to the world, earth in 10 years' time. So when you expand your worry, then your little worry drops. Otherwise, you're stuck with that. Similarly, attachment. It becomes very stifling if you're attached to just your close circle, your family all the time. So rather than another way of looking at asakta, that's what he brought in. He said the concept of asakta buddhi, one is to expand your attachment. So
that is Guruji also say, in the basic course.
Yeah.
That is, what is your responsibility? We ask, no?
Correct.
So I am responsible for my family, this. He says, expand your responsibility. That is what is seva.
Yeah. True. When you expand your belongingness, automatically you feel responsible for everything. So
automatically your desire is always the full, means that become as asakta only. You see, when you expand your duty or seva to the whole universe, that's what love. The same thing Guruji, Nanaji also said, no? Loving wife and loving universe. That is what the expansion of responsibility also. I felt that way.
Yeah, it is true.
Now we take care of our house here. We clean, around the house. We expand the whole, take the responsibility of cleaning the whole street. Means by taking others' help or whatever it is. So like that, you just expand your thing, your desires will be already done. So that comes to asakta again.
Yeah. And vigata spruhaha, the one from whom longing has gone. So he is complete in himself. So there's no more longing. Then sanyasena, by renunciation. Naishkarmya siddhim paramam. So then he's able to accomplish actionlessness. He gains that state of actionlessness. Naishkarmya siddhim. That is the sarva karma sannyasa happens then when his mind is free from attachment and one who has self-mastery. Jitatma. Anyone else wants to share anything here? We'll resume our we stopped yesterday. We were doing verse 46 of chapter 18. We'll just go back and complete it. We've not completed that. And then, time permitting, if Percy G is there, is Percy G there? Yeah. We can do the prana document that he has sent.
I'm there.
Yes, yes. You're there. Okay. All right, Percy G. So I'm just going to go back a little. Not only the creation, but also the laws are non-separate from the Lord. Not only that, the creation being non-separate from Ishvara, all the various laws, known and unknown, are also non-separate from Ishvara. Therefore, Bhagavan is, for example, gravitation. If you are able to sit on a chair without flying off into space, it is Bhagavan who is holding you there. And if you slip and fall, it is Bhagavan who brings you down. It is all law. Nothing happens without any reason. That is why you can study events and predict such things as the velocity that a body of a given weight will have when a given force is applied to it under other given conditions. I know I'm not deviating. I just want to bring this thing of that Urmila situation. Nothing happens without any reason. So why she had to stay back and not go along with Lakshmana also has a reason. There was a reason. It's just that on the surface we may not be able to understand and realize it. This is what we call Bhagavan's law. But what do we mean by that? We use such expressions as Bhagavan's law commonly. But when we use a possessive case for the Lord in our understanding, Ishvara can be a person who created an order because of which we get certain results. No, this is not how it is. From the standpoint of efficient cause, Nimitta Karana, we say Ishvara's order, but the order itself is Ishvara. Not just certain things, but also every invisible law whose result you see is pervaded by Ishvara. In fact, the law itself is Ishvara. Nobody sees the law of gravitation, but when you see falling objects and the regularity of their behavior, you understand that there is a force which is not visible to you, though the effects are very visible. Any force whose effects are visible to you should be included as Ishvara. So basically everything is Ishvara, like that Sarvam Brahmamayam, everything. The laws of Dharma are also expressions of the Lord. Because of the verse under consideration here, we have to go one step further. There are different types of laws. We have laws like the traffic laws, which are man-made and can therefore be different. The speed limit in Pennsylvania is 55 miles per hour, while on the Autobahn in Germany, it is far higher. But then there is an order which is not man-made, and that is Ishvara. Gravitation is Ishvara. But more than that, there is an order on the basis of which a human being interacts with the world. When I have a faculty of choice, I can do a given thing. I need not do it, or I can do it differently. This is that kartum shakyam, akartum shakyam, anyatha va kartum shakyam. This happens when you have a faculty of choice. If I want to make money, I can earn it legitimately, or I can rob somebody. What exactly is the means to follow? There is a man-made law that says I should not rob, which conforms to the law of Ishvara. If there is something common, some common value structure that is identical for you and for me, and known to both of us without having to be taught, then that is a universal law. The fact that it is known inherently without being told is a very important element in this. If I have to be educated about a law or a principle, I will not call it universal. But if whether I am an Eskimo or a New Yorker or a Boston Brahmin, I know a given principle without ever being taught, that is a universal principle. If neither the Harvardian nor the Eskimo likes me to stand on his toes, then I should know that there is a certain order, which as human beings, we all commonly sense. That order is an intrinsic part of creation, which we call dharma, and also the law of karma. This law is connected to our will. Because we have a will, this capacity to choose, it has to be governed by some law, and that law is what we call dharma. If the choice I make is wrong, naturally I pay for it. The law of karma makes sure of it. If I keep my finger in the fire, it will definitely burn. It is only law. I cannot blame the fire. If I have never come across fire in my life, I can plead ignorance. But with reference to these universal values, we can never plead ignorance. We all have the common sense knowledge that we want to survive, that we do not want to be hurt, and so on. This common value structure is the fabric of dharma. It is like the other structures that we have. Our physical body is governed by a certain set of laws. Our physiological conditions are governed by another set, as are our psychological conditions. So too, the exercise of my free will is governed by some laws, and those laws are what we call the laws of dharma, which are a part of creation. Therefore, dharma is Ishvara. This being so, then I am called upon to perform an action at a given time and place. There is something to be done which is appropriate, and everything else is inappropriate. That action that is appropriate is Ishvara. It is Ishvara's creation. In the same way as how a square peg cannot go into a round hole, nothing else fits there. It is the law of Ishvara. If I find that only one course of action is appropriate in a given situation and no other, I can be sure that it is Ishvara. Therefore, the appropriate action, duty, itself is Ishvara. And because it fits well with dharma, dharma is Ishvara. How logically, beautifully Swamiji deducts, comes to the conclusion that number one, Ishvara is nothing but creation, and he pervades all through creation. That is what we saw yesterday. He is both the Nimitta Karana as well as the Upadana Karana. And then he goes on to saying he is the law. He's the lawmaker, and he's also the law. He's the law, he's the dharma. And then when you are, and what is dharma so beautifully explained. It is something which is very natural, which is universal. You don't need to be taught about it. You know it. Like the example is given, nobody, whether you study in Harvard or you're from you're an Eskimo, nobody wants to, you don't want anybody to step onto your toes. You don't want anybody to hurt you physically, psychologically, whatever. So then you don't do that to others. That becomes dharma. And therefore, because and then he says, when I'm called upon to perform an action at a given time and place, there is something to be done which is appropriate. Everything else is inappropriate. So that appropriate action becomes dharma. So that action that is appropriate is Ishvara. It is Ishvara's creation. In the same way as how a square peg cannot go into a round hole, nothing else fits there. It is the law of Ishvara. This is what we see in the mother-child relationship. If I find that only one course of action is appropriate in a given situation and no other, I can be sure that it is Ishvara. So basically, the right or the appropriate action is nothing but Ishvara. Therefore, the appropriate action or duty itself is Ishvara. And because it fits well with Dharma, Dharma is Ishvara.
Brahmara, I want to
Yes.
comment.
Yes.
Mm.
Go ahead.
Just you read, no, one that nobody likes to step on others' foot, or my foot, like that. So that gives me that idea. I don't like something, I will get hurt. So I should not do that to the others. That is dharma, you see. If I don't like somebody shouting at me, I should also not shout at others. That is my dharma, you see. Nicely, I think that can be concluded with this example.
Yeah. Basically, it is don't do to others what you don't want them to do to you. Simple. That is the simple definition of dharma.
That's the correct way, I think.
You don't like to be robbed of your money or your belongings, whatever. So you don't do that to others. It's a very base example I've given, but then we can extrapolate that to everything else. So living a dharmic life actually is very natural and easy, but we get it complicated because of all our raga and dvesha. They come in and they spoil the whole fabric of dharma. And that is why we end up doing adharmic things. Raga, dvesha, kama, krodha, all those, they bring in that impurity in our performance of dharma. Doing one's duty is worship to the Lord. As long as I think that I am the agent of an action, the karta, who enjoys a will and has a variety of desires to fulfill, I have to completely relegate my likes and dislikes to the background and do what is obviously appropriate to the occasion. If the choice I make is the appropriate one, it is not really a choice at all, because what is called for is highly visible. When what is to be done is done, what choice did I make? I did not have to choose what to do because it was decided by the circumstances. I use my choice only when I avoid what I tend to do. I will read this again. When what is to be done is done, what choice did I make? It is like the mother taking care of the child. No, the child is crying. The mother doesn't have a choice. It is choiceless. I mean, what is to be done is the mother goes and consoles the child. So there is no there's no choice for the mother to choose. Should I go? Should I not go? I did not have to choose what to do because it was decided by the circumstances. She had no other option but to do it. I use my choice only when I avoid what I tend to do. I want to do something else and I avoid using my choice, my free will to do it. Doing is the only choice there is with regard to duty. Or choice is used when two courses of action are open, which are equally appropriate. Otherwise, what choice do we have? There is no choice at all except in avoiding what does not fit. This is the only exercise of choice in doing one's duty. And because there is no choice, this is Ishvara.
Very
Therefore,
good.
by
It is,
doing, yeah,
I just reminded about the Guruji. When we say, Guruji, I love you, he says, you have no choice other than loving me.
correct. There is no choice at all except in avoiding what does not fit. This is the only exercise of choice in doing one's duty. And because there is no choice, this is Ishvara. Therefore, by doing one's own karma, swakarma, what is appropriate at a given time and place, one is worshipping Ishvara. This is the abhyarchana the Lord speaks of when he says, Tam abhyarcha. Who is that Ishvara? The one who is sarvavyapi, all pervasive, sarvagnya, all knowing, and sarvashaktiman, almighty is Ishvara. Here, the things that we normally identify with worship, like offering a flower, are not being called worship, archana, but conformity to all the various duties and dispositions that was mentioned in the earlier verses with reference to the four classes of people is called as archana, sorry. Or in modern times, it means all that has to be done by an individual at a given time, given the circumstances. Whenever I do exactly what is called for in a given situation, that is worshipping Ishvara. Whenever I do what is appropriate, I connect myself to Ishvara. That is why there is so much joy and satisfaction in such actions. If I do what is inappropriate, neither I am happy nor is any other person who is involved. If there is happiness in performing the appropriate action, you must know that action is connecting you to Ishvara. The law of karma, the law of dharma, and your action all become one and the same. There is a harmony here between the law of dharma and your actions, and that gives you a sense of peace because of a release from the hold of the raga dvesha. If you are doing this day after day, what will happen to your likes and dislikes, ragas and dveshas? What hold can they have over you? They just fall apart. Only non-binding raga dveshas remain, which are beautiful because they make you a unique individual. This is actually reliving what we did in the introduction to the Bhagavad Gita, Swamiji's introduction, where he talks extensively about dharma and how that action that gives you that inner happiness. If I remember, he had quoted one example where you have been putting off clearing up your shelf. And once when you do that, it gives you so much joy. You've done a simple thing of just clearing up your shelf and setting it in order. But that was an appropriate thing to do. For some reason, you kept postponing it. But when you actually end up doing it, the amount of joy that it gives you is that law of dharma. So the law of karma and the law of dharma become in alignment. There is that arjavam over there. And when that is there is harmony between the law of dharma and your actions. And that gives you a sense of peace. And that releases you from that hold of ragas and dveshas. Because there was another raga, or you had a little aversion to clearing up your shelf, for some reason you had put it on hold. But when you actually do it, then the hold of raga dveshas loosens up. And when you do this day by day, day in and day out, then all the binding raga dveshas, the hold releases, and that becomes archana. That becomes tam abhyarcha. That becomes worship, true worship. What is this? Anyone wants to share anything here?
Just beautiful, very nice. It's
So what has to be done at a given time and situation becomes your dharma. So what is the siddhi mentioned here? Once your likes and dislikes are non-binding, you have antakarana shuddhi and can therefore gain the knowledge that completely frees you from karma. If a person has the understanding that the performing of his duties is worshipping of Ishvara, he gains success. Siddhim vindati manavaha. First in terms of antakarana shuddhi, and finally he gains the siddhi, that is moksha, which is knowledge, jnana. The important thing that is being conveyed here is that doing one's duty with a proper attitude is worship of Ishvara. Generally, worship is considered to be specific action, physical, oral, or mental. That restricted concept is negated here. These special karmas of ritual and prayer are considered worship because in them there is an obvious connection between Ishvara and the individual. All our regular pujas and all, there is an obvious connection. The problem is that one thinks that afterwards there is no connection, which is not true. Ishvara is not only the cause, but also the effect. The whole creation is Ishvara. When that is so, when are you going to be away from that Ishvara? Therefore, according to the Shastra, if you do any karma that is in conformity with dharma, which itself is not separable from Ishvara, and you are connected to Ishvara. This makes you a karma yogi, but only if you recognize dharma as Ishvara. An atheist can be an ethical person, but not necessarily a yogi, because being a karma yogi means recognizing Ishvara. There is no other type of karma yoga. There can be a purely secular ethical person. We see many people who have no religious belief, but are above all blemish in their conduct. Then again, a religious person can be ethical, but not a yogi. If his karma is not performed for antakarana shuddhi, or if he does not recognize dharma as Ishvara, he can only be a clean person who is free from conflicts. He is not a yogi. Therefore, it is clear that to be a karma yogi, one must necessarily recognize dharma as Ishvara, as it is presented here. Yatah pravrittir bhutanam yena sarvamidam tatam swakarmana tamabhyarcha siddhim vindati manava. From whom is the creation of all beings? By whom all this is pervaded? By worshipping him through one's own duty, one gains success. In order to worship that Ishvara, you do not need to do a particular karma, even though a particular karma brings about a conversion of an occasional devotee into an abiding devotee. But this special karma alone is not worship. Every time you conform to dharma, recognizing dharma as Ishvara, there is worship. Performing this worship, a person gains success, siddhi, in terms of antahkarana shuddhi, and therefore qualification for the knowledge of Atma, which is the success or fulfillment of a human life. In the context of the description of the duties of the Varnas, these are the karmas that are to be done. But all the prescribed duties of the 4 Varnas have to be performed with the right attitude. Without that, the performing of duty does not become yoga. It only leads to heaven, Swarga. Just give me 1 second. Anyone wants to share? Please go.
Very beautifully explained. Very, very beautifully. Step by step. What you do naturally, like a mother looking after the child, that is dharma. That is worship. So dharma is Ishvara. So you are praying, you are doing the job of Ishvara only. Wonderful, wonderful. That's a wonderful. We cannot say that when we worship through our actions, like in the prayer and all that, that is not only the worship. You think that every action, what you do naturally, as a worship to the God. Even if you walk, it will be a pradakshana around this one. So if you think each and every action what you do is surrendering to the God, that is dharma. Wonderfully explained, very clearly. Thank you.
And that was really neat, the explanation. That's great.
So in order to become a karma yogi, see, an atheist does not become a karma yogi because he does not believe in Ishvara.
I didn't get that. What did you say, Dr. Ramana?
An atheist,
Oh, atheist. Okay. All right.
a very ethical person. Atheist may be a very ethical person doing everything which is right. But then he does not become a karma yogi. He only attains Swarga, that's all. But if Antakarna Shuddhi has to happen, if you have to, your due performance of your duty as a karma yogi, you would have to recognize Ishvara as dharma. The concept of Ishvara has to be brought in. So what I'm just taking a corollary of what Nana had mentioned about the attachment, where how you expand your attachment or belongingness to involve the whole universe. Similarly, we do our daily rituals, our prayers, and everything. So we expand the devotion to every other activity in our life, to our performance of our duties as different roles that we play as a mother, as a wife, as a husband, as a teacher, as an employee or an employer. So if that percolates, that devotion that you do, that you have, and when you're sitting in front of your altar and praying, if that devotion spreads over to the rest of your activities and you do it with that attitude of devotion, then you're conforming to the practice of karma yoga.
Yes, Hari Om, and then extending it even to the rest of the community or the rest of the world. Not only your children, but even other children.
Correct. Correct. Yeah. So should we go further in chapter 18 only? I think we'll go, no? I think this concept of swakarma, swadharma and all that will become a little more clear. And then we'll go to chapter 3. I know we're doing a little sing song, but that's fine. As long as we are with knowledge, that should be fine. I think Percy Ji, today we have only 10 minutes left. Maybe we'll have the session on prana another day, because I'm not sure whether we'll be able to complete all of that.
Yeah, that is okay. Yeah, that is okay with me. I'm
Yeah.
fine with that.
Fine. We'll go with this 47th verse. Shreyan swadharmo vigunaha paradharmat swanushtitat svabhavaniyatam karma kurvannapnoti kilbisham. Vigunaha, devoid of merit. Swadharmaha, one's own duty. Swanushtitat, well done. Paradharmat, duty of another person. Shreyan is better. Swabhava niyatam karma, action enjoined according to one's nature. Kurvan, doing. Na apnoti, one does not gain. Kilbisham, fault. One's own duty, devoid of merit, is better than the duty of another. Well done. Doing action enjoined according to one's nature, one does not incur fault. Doing one's own duty is better than the duty of another. If you understand duty in terms of a universal order, then Gita has a scriptural value. Otherwise, Gita would only be applicable to a particular group of people at a particular time and place and lose its status of being a scripture. In order to be considered a scripture, a text must have a universal message. The context can be cultural or topical, but its spirit must definitely be universal, because a scripture has to address not one group of people, but all human beings throughout the history of humanity. The Gita here says Manava, a human being, not Vaidika, a Vedic person, because it is talking about facts which do not change as the times change or the society differs. If I speak keeping the human being in view, and the people in front of me happen to be Indian or a Chinese, naturally, that will condition the character of my talk, but not the content. In addressing the Chinese, I may say certain things that are relevant in China. There are topical issues at any given time and place in history which are pertinent to the people being addressed, but they will naturally form part of the discourse. The Bible, for instance, is a scripture because even when it is clearly addressing the fishermen, it keeps people in general in view. In addressing the problems of the fishermen in the context familiar to them, It addresses the wider human problems. That is what makes it a scripture. Even though the form in which it is received can vary, the content of a scriptural message does not change in different situations and at different times. Here, the context Varnashrama is taken into account. One's own duty, Swadharma, is determined by the societal group into which one is born, Varna, and the particular stage of life, Ashrama, that one is at. Whether one is a student, Brahmachari, or a married person, Grihastha, or preparing for renunciation, Vanaprastha, or a renunciate, Sannyasi, or a Brahmana, Kshatriya, Vaishya, or Sudra, determines exactly what the duty of a given person will be at a given time. That is Swadharma. The whole system is visualized for the purpose of one's inner growth, and it has prominence in the Gita because Gita is nothing but a Smriti Grantha, which visualizes the end, moksha, in keeping with what is said in the Shruti, not as a thing to be accomplished later, but as something which is the very nature, swarupa of oneself. Keeping that end in view, the Veda must present a way of life that will help to accomplish it. The Veda says all this is for one's growth alone. If I talk about moksha to a person who is interested only in arthas and kamas, securities and pleasures, and not ready for moksha, he will sympathize with me thinking, I have missed out on life. So you have to be ready and understand that the Veda says that even though you go for security, artha, and pleasure, kama, you should not give up dharma. In adhering to dharma, you will learn to yield a lot because likes and dislikes, ragas and dveshas have to be thrown into the background when duties have to be done. What is prohibited, nishiddha karma, has to be avoided, and what is enjoined, vihita karma, has to be done. One may even do kamya karma, but not at the cost of dharma. This is the first lap of a human journey. Next, the Veda and the Gita tell us that this is all useless. Yata iha karma chito lokaha kshiyate tatha amutra punya chito loka kshiyate. Even though a person may have been performing rituals for limited ends, he would have been repeating the Upanishad mantras, which would give him some vague knowledge of moksha and also Ishvara's grace. That will bless him with viveka, discrimination, after which the enquiry really starts. He's like giving layer by layer. So the first layer, of course, is whether you're following dharma, artha, kama, whether you're after artha and kama, dharma has to precede each of your actions. So dharma is the fabric on which you even pursue your artha and kama. So if you talk about moksha to a person who's only pursuing artha and kama, he might think, "Arey, sad." He'll sympathize with you and say, "Oh, he's missing out a lot in life," which is generally the case with people who are out there in the materialistic world. They're enjoying their life and they actually sympathize with people, may sympathize with people on the path, saying, "Oh, what are they? They're missing out a lot in life," right? But then that is the first lap of the human journey. So you can follow artha kama, but not at the cost of dharma. Next, the Veda and the Gita tell us that all this is useless. Yatha iha karma chito loka kshiyate, tatha amutra punya chito loka kshiyate. So although a person may have been performing rituals for limited ends, he would have been repeating the Upanishad mantras, which would give him some vague knowledge of moksha. So that is where that opening from Artha and Kama, that little opening of moksha starts happening. And also Ishvara's grace. That will bless him with Viveka, discrimination, after which the enquiry really starts. So then begins his inner journey. Inquiry into the ultimate human end. What is
No,
the inquiry? Yes.
that gives answer for why we have to do puja daily.
Yeah.
That is our niyata karma.
Yeah.
It will lead to and viveka, which will the enquiry starts then. So
And
wonderfully.
it is also, I kind of answered my question. This niyata karma is there for all the varnas, no? Whether it is a Brahman, Vaishya, Sudra, even a Sudra does his niyata karma, isn't it? So therefore, with repetition of this mantras and whatever, the puja that is a ritual that he's doing, there will be that little vague knowledge of moksha and then that little viveka that dawns. And that is how they evolve. My question was, how does a person evolve? Because evolution is what is part of this human pursuit to become emotionally mature and become a mumukshutva. I mean, get onto the path of mumukshutva. So this explains that. Inquiry into the ultimate human end. Should we do this tomorrow? What is inquiry? We'll stop.
Yes,
here.
yes, yes.
Yeah. Very beautiful. It is. Anyone wants to share anything before we close?
Because I think that explains why Shankaracharya dealt more on these verses. He was telling, no, Nanaji was telling on 46. It clears everything. What is dharma? Very, very nicely told in these verses and explained in this form. Wonderful. Very layer by layer, layer by layer.
Right.
That explains why it was mostly commented. Wonderfully. Wonderful. Good.
Before we leave, thank you, Sureshji. Before we leave, just wanted to share, I know some of us have left already. Nana said after finishing chapter 18, he intends on reading the Shankara Bhashya, Adi Shankara's Bhashya, and I think Swamiji's commentary on that. That is quite exhaustive. That has about 500 odd pages or so. He says, depending on how we are all tuned in for that, if you're all okay with it, he will go ahead and he would want to read that. So,
Absolutely okay. Absolutely okay, Pramraj.
yeah. So I think we'll go ahead and after finishing the 18th chapter, we'll do that. There, I think in Shankara's Bhashya, he himself gives the Pratipaksha Vadana. That is, he poses a question as if coming from a person who does not believe in Advaita, and then he gives his answer to that. So it is like a dialogue. It's almost like, so Nana was saying, in order to save time, he will only give Shankara's version, but I would think it's good to get the whole
Yeah, I think so.
Pratipaksha Bhavana, because in our own mind, we might get those Pratipaksha Bhavana, those doubts that crop up. So if we do the whole text and not, let it be time bound. So I think that will be fine. So I'll inform him that.
Yeah, wonderful.
Dr. Dharma, let him take the decision. He knows what is best for us. Why should we tell him what to do?
No, he had wanted me to find out from all of you whether this is fine, whether we could go ahead and read. So that I will tell him.
Tell him he knows us now for 1 year. So just he knows our level of whatever they
Yeah.
understand. So let him decide. He is the best, the teacher is the best judge what to do. Who are they to tell him? They are like showing the lamp to the sun.
We are so lucky to have him.
I will
Really,
convey to him. Okay.
we are lucky to
Please,
have him.
yeah.
I'm all for it, Dr. Brahmara. That's what I want to know. Thank
Done.
you.
Done.
Yeah.
Om Loka Samasta Sukhino Bhavantu. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om Tat Sat Shri Krishna Arpanamastu.